Hi, Sunanda.
Hi, Krishna Prana.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank
I
you.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just was going to say, how about you?
I'm finding this book a little too full of details about the workings of the society and not
Uh-huh,
enough about Trigunatita.
uh-huh.
So I may be skipping over some sections. It's really good to read it to yourself, but out loud
uh-huh.
it gets really tiresome.
Yeah.
Do you find it that way?
Yeah, I find it interesting just because I was lived in San Francisco for
Okay.
so long. But, I don't think everybody would,
I'm
and if it keeps going like that, yeah,
Yeah, it's
maybe.
getting a little. I'd rather have more of his life, in
Exactly.
his teachings, but
It's
this is
teaching.
like,
Yeah. The photos are interesting.
hmm?
The photos are very interesting.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I just said the photos are interesting.
Yeah, but they can't see them.
Oh, oh, the people out in yeah.
Yeah, no one can see those photos, so
Okay.
you can because you have the book. I find the book fascinating, but
Uh-huh.
for reading out loud, there's a lot of things that are.
Yeah.
This is interesting, though. Hi, Lito. Well, I will probably read the book until chapter 6. And then Lito, I was saying I may abbreviate the book a bit. There's a few too many And then the president of the society said this and that. What do you think? You're muted, though.
Okay. Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, it's a really good book to read to yourself.
Yeah.
Excellent to read to yourself because it's full of information.
Yeah.
But reading it aloud gets a little.
Well, we appreciate it, though.
I may start selecting. Although there's a statement in our first part which maybe I won't do too much selecting. We're having repairs done on the temple, and so there's a big scaffolding in the back of the temple that they're going to be working on tomorrow.
Ooh.
Putting in a new heating and AC system to keep constant moisture content in the air.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Okay. Well, for the time being, we're on page 89. It's called Beginnings. And we have just gotten through a section where Dhirananda, who was a Western disciple of Swami Vivekananda, I believe, or maybe Swami Trigunatita. Yeah, Swami Trigunatita had given her the name Dhira, and Trigunatita Nanda expanded it to Dhirananda. She's kind of explaining why they did not like to back Dr. Logan's magazine, The Pacific Vedantan. Carl Peterson, as we have seen, succeeded Dr. Logan as president of the society. The Petersons were, in fact, among Swami Trigunatita's closest workers, and from the time the Swami entered their home in late January 1903, they were to live under the same roof with him, one roof or another, throughout his entire ministry in San Francisco. Dhirananda was always at his call. During the 3-week stay at Dr. Logan's, Swami Trigunatita had held weekly meditation classes, as well as Gita classes. Now in February, public lectures delivered on Sunday afternoons were added to the program. The first two were given at Union Square Hall on Post Street, where Swamiji had given a series of 4 lectures. It was perhaps it was not filled to bursting, for a small hall in the same building was rented by the Society for the next 2 Sundays. Admission to the first of these 4 downtown lectures was free. To the next 3, the admission was 25 cents, a fee which would surely have covered the hall rent and advertising costs. The 4 lectures formed a series of sorts. Messages from Heaven, The Great Mystery of the Universe Unveiled, The Grand Solution of the Cosmos, and the Wonderful Discovery of the Great Mine of Wealth. A 5th downtown Sunday lecture afternoon, delivered March 1st, was entitled Life of Sri Ramakrishna, a Model Vedantist at the Present Age. This was kind of unique because Swamiji and most of the other Swamis who came to America first did not preach Ramakrishna. They preached strictly Vedanta philosophy, and most of the Swamis who followed these direct disciples did the same thing for quite a few years. The Swami's style of lecturing was not eloquent. Indeed, it was such that the transcripts would yield few, if any, quotable passages, for his ideas came in short bursts, their rhythm repeated again and again. One senses the strong effects this must have had upon his audience. There was a feeling of a driving power behind his words that must have shot the ideas they carried into the minds of his listeners, sometimes thrilling them, sometimes perhaps stunning them, but in any event, never boring them. He presented Vedantic ideas in terms of the Western mind could comprehend, neither watering down those ideas nor obscuring them with technical Sanskrit. Through the years, he would cover a wide variety of subjects, elucidating the Vedanta philosophy and practice from all angles. Following his beloved Vivekananda, he would try to instill the Vedanta philosophy into the West with all the force of his personality and by every means he could command. Primarily, he taught Advaita Vedanta, emphasizing the paths of reason and meditation rather than devotion and worship. But in private interviews, he would give to each student the practice best suited to him or her. It was during the weeks at the Buchanan Street flat where Swami Trigunatita in these early days was still informal and genial in his classes that he forged close relationships with the students. Of those happy days, Cara French briefly reminisced. One evening he had been talking of meditation and the necessity of a faithful observance of it, when one whom he later named Madhavi, Margaret Whalen, asked impulsively, "But Swami, how can one meditate regularly? I used to meditate, and the doorbell rings, then the telephone rings, and the fleas crawl and bite." Smiling kindly, Swami said, "Yes, these things do come to disturb, but try to find time in the day when you will be free from outside calls or can ignore them. Then if the fleas come, try and get hold of the mind. It is all in the mind. Catch the fleas in the mind." The small group which had met for the classes at the Petersons soon grew. Cara French recalled in her reminiscences. From the original 6 or 8 to a dozen, to 16, to 20, being augmented each week till the rooms were overcrowded and larger, more commodious quarters were needed. So 3 among us each began looking for a suitable location. Such a location was soon found on the corner of Steiner and Herman Streets in the same neighborhood as Mr. and Mrs. French were then living. They've got, as Sunanda pointed out, they've got wonderful pictures of San Francisco in those days in this book. But I can try and show you, but I don't think you'll be able to see them. In fact, I'm sure you can't. These are the 2 buildings on Steiner and I think one was Buchanan Street. Yeah, Buchanan and Pixley, and the other is Steiner and Herman. Where Mr. and Mrs. French were then living, all the way back across town, 4 blocks south of Dr. Logan's. It was a large, newly constructed 3-story building of late Victorian style, which is to say, it was not as ornate as many of San Francisco's earlier, elaborately towered and turreted residences. It had a flat roof with only moderately ornamental cornices, bay windows, and a round bay window corner. 2 doors on Steiner Street gave access to the second and third floors, the latter of which would become the Vedanta Society's headquarters. Swami Trigunatita's rooms and a sizable apartment for the Peters. Of the move to these new headquarters in late February 1903, the only detailed information comes from the reminiscences of Kara French, so we shall let her tell it in her own words. And I'm going to skip this next section and tell it in her own words. Yeah, Davy, the video is blurry. A new building, corner of Steiner and Herman Streets, facing Du Bois Park, met with a general approval. A large upper flat at reasonable rental was so arranged as to provide a sunny front room overlooking the park for Swami's use. Double parlors for classrooms and 4 equally pleasant rooms for occupancy by the Peterson family, Carl and Dara Peterson, and their teenage son, Alexander. We were in a quandary at first, wondering why Swami had refused to use the bathtub. Shankari, Fanny Gould, had purchased fine, large bath towels expressly for his use. Finally, he explained he did not like the idea of bathing feet, body, and head in the same water. This was obviated somewhat when Nishkama, Mr. French, made a low stool for him to sit on, and he used a small pitcher in drawing water fresh from the faucets to pour over his head. Now, this is very much the Indian style of bathing, a bucket and a cup. No home was then equipped with shower baths. It was in the early days at Steiner Street when furnishings were needed. Curtains, carpets, etc., for stairs, hall, society rooms, and for Swami's rooms, which also served as his office, each member aided by individually paying for his or her own chair. A few donating extras for strangers who might attend. A charge of 25 cents was made for the Sunday lectures, which began at 40 Steiner Street in March 1903. Then finally a system of dues. $1.50 per month was inaugurated to meet this outlay and other expenses. And then they list that the rent was $25 a month, heat, gas, and light $5, telephone $1.50, Japanese janitor 75 cents, car fare for the Swami. And there was, the Petersons provided his meals and the Wohlbergs his clothing. There were several, Mr. Jewell and others, who gladly gave money, time, and service. The Society's financial condition was healthy, and though sometimes somewhat in arrears, held its own, thanks to Mr. Jewell, who had been a good friend of Swami Vivekananda's, and who now acted as a sort of benevolent banker for the Society, paying all the big bills and being repaid in installments. In April, after the move to 40 Steiner Street, the Society began to hum. Swami Trigunatita suggested that it have one business meeting per month rather than one per week. He further suggested that it subscribe to magazines and contribute to a fund to repay Mr. Jewell on a regular basis. A reservoir of books was set up into which the members could donate volumes for the start of a library. A set of bylaws was to be drawn up by Kara French. The address of the headquarters was sent to the city directory. 1,000 copies of a list of Swami Trigunatita's coming lectures for August to October 1903 were printed for general distribution, and reports of the current Sunday lectures made by Mrs. French were sent regularly to the Ramakrishna Order's English language magazine, Prabhupada Bharata, edited in the Himalayas and the Brahmavadan in Madras. The membership increased. It stood at 40 in April 1903. That month, one new member was added. On February 23rd, the report of the financial secretary, Mrs. Wolborg, showed a balance of $38.20 in the treasury after all the bills for the Union Square Hall and advertising were paid. So this is how a society is still run. We are ahead one month and a little behind the next month and then ahead. And on May 18th, the financial secretary reported that $40 in the general fund and $70 in the house fund, that is in the fund for 40 Steiner Street, the members contributed according to the need, and everything was undertaken in prompt and orderly fashion. Committees were appointed for all extra business that the society undertook, such as looking for new headquarters and buying furniture. There was, however, scope for individual creativity. For instance, Clinton French became being handy with a carpenter's kit, helped with the furnishings of 40 Steiner Street. To him, Kara French related, Swami gave exact dimensions for the bed he wanted in his room. It's a duplicate of one they saw in India later. A low stool for the bathroom and a platform for the society rooms from which he lectured. Then later, as a surprise for Swami, he made him a revolving bookcase and a footstool with a drawer in it containing shoe-blacking equipment for use under his desk. When the new headquarters of the, I think those are still in the, I think the revolving bookcase is still in the convent library. I noticed they had one that they kept things in. I don't know that it's the same one. Yeah. When the new headquarters of the Vedanta Society were made livable for both the Swami and the Petersons, a reception was held. Excuse me. To give the members and their friends an opportunity to greet Swami Trigunatita in the new location. A very credible court program was presented, its central feature being, of course, a brief talk by Swami. The rest of the program consisted of vocal and instrumental music, all accompanied on the piano by Kara French herself. Even before this, however, Swami Trigunatita had celebrated Sri Ramakrishna's birthday. He tells of this in a letter to Purna Chandra Seth, dated March 4th, 1903. It bore the return address of 40 Steiner Street and read, in part, I have been extremely busy here. I did very little compared to what I am tremendous. In India, I did very little compared to what I am excuse me. In India, I did very little compared to that. I am tremendously active here. Every week I have to give 5 to 7 lectures. Then, too, a number of people write to me and I have to reply to their letters. And then meeting people. I have to stay indoors when people come to see me. All these things have kept me extremely busy. Then I have to change my dress 18 times a day. That is another botheration. Anyway, the people are very pleased and the work seems to be not bad. I am still a vegetarian. I do not touch fish or meat or eggs or any kind of fatty things. But my appearance has been reduced to half of what it was. Mr. Fever has not forgotten to visit me almost every day. This was probably the malarial fever that the Swami had contracted in Dinajpur at the end of 1897. Probably you had great joy in Sri Ramakrishna's birthday. I observed it on Sri Ramakrishna's actual birthday, day and night. The whole of the Titi Puja and the previous day, I fasted without even water. And in that condition, I gave 3 long lectures and 4 small lectures. 2 talks were so good that everyone began to cry. And some people came from 20 miles away and stayed overnight with their friends in San Francisco. Swami Trigunatita's celebration of Sri Ramakrishna's birthday must have been held at the Petersons' house. For Sri Ramakrishna's actual birthday was on February 18th when he was staying there. This would have been the first of the long celebrations, during which the Swami, for 15 hours, once 24 hours, would offer a continuous flow of worship in one form or another, lecturing, chanting, reading, meditating. Later on, we'll speak more of this. On March 8th, even before the Swami and the Petersons were fully settled at Steiner Street, and no doubt before Mr. French had built the lecture platform, the Swami started giving his regular Sunday lectures as well as the meditation and Gita classes on Mondays and Thursdays, respectively. The titles and dates of the Sunday lectures were listed in the second edition of the circular. The second edition was identical with the first, except for the lecture list and under the heading Membership, the following additional information, or one might say, instruction. Members are expected to pay in advance their monthly dues very regularly for at least 1 year, even if the class and the like are closed for a period of time, to the Vedanta Society at 40 Steiner Street, City. One of the main objects of this society being to propagate in this country a new and grand thought that the human brain can ever possibly produce. All the members of the society are expected to think it a duty on their part to maintain this society as much as they can, besides monthly dues, and thereby do a great good not only to themselves, but to their own countrymen as well. He had many rules, and he set the tone for the society there. The Sunday lectures, the first 5 of which had been given at the Union Square building. By that time, the second circular appeared. The series on Indian customs, March 8th. Indian homes, Indian manners and customs, child marriage in India, duties of Indian women. In April, the 4 lectures were philosophical, as had been those in February. But while February's were sweeping, revealing a vast cosmic scheme, April's were more detailed, more narrowed down to the individual, the microcosm. The titles were The Anatomy and Physiology of the Internal Man, What Remains After Death, Nature of the Ego, and Nature of the Soul. The Vedanta Society minutes did not record the attendance at these. However, as he had written to Purnachandra Seth on March 4th, the people were very pleased, and the work seems to be not bad. The fact is, the Vedanta Society had come under the guidance of a force. Swami Trigunatita had many outstanding qualities. He was boundlessly loving, endlessly patient. His will was indomitable. His mind was brilliant. His work was totally dedicated to Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda. He was at times eccentric. His way of life, his way of work, his mode of expression were all markedly his own, and were now and then astonishing. But pervading and overriding the idiosyncrasies of his personality was the sheer force of his being. That strong will, that energy that could not be broken by anything, that was Swami Trigunatita. Carl Peterson would say of him years later. There was none who did not feel the Swami's power, and few who did not benefit by it. Even in these early days at Steiner Street, long before the stricter class discipline, Cara French wrote, I learned that when Swami Trigunatita said a thing, he expected it to be obeyed, and he did not expect to be obliged to repeat it. One who failed had very definitely lost something. There were, as it happened, some who failed, and who, in their own minds, simply did not care for the new Swami's method of doing things. It wasn't like genial as things were in the beginning. There was even when then a discordant note in the society. The underlying structure upon which Trigunatita intended to build a spiritual edifice that would not topple seemed to be too businesslike to be spiritual. This had not been Trigunanda's way. Organization had not been his forte or his inclination. Not, for that matter, had been work in the city. There was actually little basis or reason for comparison between these two great disciples. Yet, as is often the case, particularly in the West, where initiations into spiritual life means a complete departure from the norm, the spiritual guide strikes a deep chord in the student's very being, and any deviation from his ways and methods of teaching by his successor seems a violation of all that is sacred, a ripping apart of one's very soul. Swami Trigunanda and Swami Trigunatita were widely different in temperament and expression. Such, indeed, was the case with all of Sri Ramakrishna's direct disciples. Each was different from the others, but all were in harmony with each other, bound together by the Master's ideals and love in an eternal unity. But their students, who had not yet touched or glimpsed that unity within themselves, and who loved and followed one great Swami, could not comprehend, let alone accept, the ways of another one. Inevitably, when among the disciples of Swami Trigunanda there was grumbling and opposition under Swami Trigunatita's administrations, it started early. With time it would grow rather than diminish, for the immense strength of Swami Trigunatita's personality was such that the student would either surrender in love to his methods of work, for those methods were motivated by nothing but boundless love, or beat his or head against the stone wall of the Swami's will, and sooner or later leave or be expelled from the society. The murmuring, of course, reached the Swami's ears. In the weekly business meetings of February 16 and 23, he tried to explain the reasons that a coherent and strong organization was necessary. Portions of the minutes of these read as follows. Under the head of good and welfare of the society, Swami Trigunatita addressed the society advising method, vis-a-vis rules and regulations for government and business conduct of the society, reminding the members of the strength in unity of purpose spiritually as well as materially. Any members opposed to organization were requested to state their views upon the subject. Not too much was brought up, though everyone smoldered in. They said, though opposition was smoldering in some breasts, faced with the enormous presence of the Swami, no one's peeped. The next meeting on the 23rd, under good and welfare, Swami Trigunatita addressed the society, urging the sympathy, the unity, and cooperation, which is the real basis of any strong society. Recognizing the great privilege of having a Swami with us, and also the material responsibilities which that privilege entails upon the society, it was moved and seconded that a note of grateful acknowledgement be extended to those members who have thus far, individually borne the responsibilities and made this privilege possible for us as a society. The motion was carried. By the end of April 1903, the Society had been imbued with the ideals of Advaita Vedanta, and the pattern of its expression had been set. It was not apt to falter, for it had been placed upon a rock-hard foundation of rules and regulations and orderly procedures. Its members consisted of those who may have been rank beginners in spiritual life, but were earnest to the core. Harmony had been established, at least. Disharmony had been rendered impotent, and the society's spirit, unburdened by discord and confusion, could soar. Swami wrote to Trigunatita in April, "Dear Hari Maharaj, I could not write you for want of time. Please do not mind. I shall go to Los Angeles on the 21st of April and stay in the house of Mrs. Kelly. After working there for 3 months, I shall return here. You will be happy to learn that attendance in the Vedanta meeting is gradually increasing. I have relieved Dr. Logan of his responsibility, but you have not expressed your reaction to this. This has disappointed me. P.S. The kindness, love, and selflessness of dear, that is Mrs. Peterson, has impressed me." Now, at the end of April, the Swami turned his attention to the Vedanta societies in Southern California. Before he left San Francisco, he instructed the San Francisco members to continue the Monday and Thursday classes during his absence. On Monday to read Swami Vivekananda's lectures, and later Swami Abhedananda's. On Thursdays to read Swami Vivekananda's Raja Yoga. He directed Kara French to draft a set of bylaws in his absence for the future guidance of the society, and to send to him each week a list of the members who attended regularly. If any fail to come, find out the reason. If ill, go to see them. And if aid them in every possible way. This is the way, dear Sarala, to keep all the members together in one tie of love. He would be gone for 3 months. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 5. The next one is what he does in Southern California. Are there any questions? Any comments? He was a very strong Swami. No comments? But this thing of when the Swamis are replaced, this still happens, especially if the Swami has been in one place for 20 or 30 years. It's absolute. Well, when Swami Swahananda died, we were quite lucky because Swami Sarvadevananda had been here, and we all knew him. But when Swami Prabhavananda died and Swami Swahananda came down, Swami Swahananda was not Swami Prabhavananda. And many people were disappointed, doing all kinds of comparisons, carrying on like what we called, one of our nuns called billy goats. Brother Krishnananda showed us the perfect example of how you greet the new Swami when he comes. You absolutely treat them as you did the one before. And he was Swami Prabhavananda's constant companion and help. And when Swami Swahananda arrived, he turned around and gave exactly the same service to him as he had to Swami Prabhavananda. Not a breath of air between the service, one or the other. Okay, no questions or comments? All right. Saturday is Karma Yoga Day. Please come. Please come. We have projects. If it's too hot, you won't be outside, but we do have projects. We're getting ready for Ramakrishna Shivaratri and Ramakrishna Puja. Saturday evening Swami Trigunatita will give his class on the gospel, the reading of the gospel. And then on Sunday, the 8th, Pravrajika Vrajaprana will give a talk on practicing Vedanta. And I'm going to put a plug in for her book, Vedanta, The Next Step. Everyone should get that because it's really good. It follows Vedanta made simple quite nicely. Okay, and anything else? No one has a comment? Okay. Take care, stay healthy. There's good. All right. Jai Sri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Jai Mahamaya Ki Jai.